a time when the movement of women and people of color in America and the world was looking for change, part of the patriarchal structure of Hollywood created its ideal image of a woman with Marilyn Monroe. A simple blonde white woman who is easily fooled, heartbroken and a loser, something that maybe she didn't want either, but he couldn't do anything. The Hollywood body image of him is very different from what he was and what happened to him. Harassment and violence drew him towards him every day, and many times he did not find a place to express himself. At the time when Hollywood producers were working on this audience and pocketing big bucks from Monroe, this woman, with all her friends, even her marriages and relationships, was a lonely woman and, according to the remaining documents of her life, she was wise and tired of the world around her. In the period when the Southern whites or their Northern sympathizers with 19th century ideas wanted to either discredit or destroy the movements in front of them, even against the American Constitution, Marilyn Monroe was a white and blonde girl who was destroyed with all her talent in acting and especially comedy. A bitter and conflicting story with the image made of himself and at the end of his death in the shadow of his ambiguity after the relationship with the murdered President John F. Kennedy. Marilyn Monroe, born on June 1, 1926 in Los Angeles, was an American actress and model. Monroe's life is a series of strange events, both when he was in the orphanage and when he became a permanent Hollywood star. Norma Jane Mortensen was her real name after birth at USC Medical Center in Los Angeles County, California. His mother, Gladys Pillar Baker, came from a poor family and was forced to marry a man named John Newton Baker at the age of 15, and after giving birth to 2 children, she managed to divorce her husband and then kidnap the children from him. Several years later, Monroe's mother, who worked as a negative film cutter in the film combining industry, met a man named Martin Edward Mortensen. Got married. The point is that there is no exact information about Marilyn's father. Also, Marilyn did not know that she had a sister until she was an adult. Marilyn's mother leaves her with a family named Atkinson and goes to work in the city. After some time, Gladys, Marilyn's mother, had a mental breakdown and paranoid schizophrenia and was admitted to a hospital. Marilyn rarely saw him after that. Marilyn's life was spent with the Atkinson family, and the rape and sexual abuse imposed on her by this family made her isolated and even stammered. All of Monroe's bitter childhood experiences made him an actor. He said, "I didn't like the world around me because it was kind of scary. When I heard it was acting, I said that's what I want to be. Some of my foster families sent me to the movies to get me out of the house. In front of me, there was a big screen with a single little kid, and I loved it." Marilyn was looking for a solution to find independence and escape from that situation, and for this reason, on June 19, 1942, just after her 16th birthday, she married a 21-year-old boy who was in their neighborhood. After marriage, Monroe's life became very boring. She dropped out of high school and became a housewife. He even said, "I will die of boredom." Sometime later, in 1943, his wife joined the Merchant Marine and was stationed at Santa Catalina Island, where Monroe moved with her. In 1955, Monroe took an acting course at the Octaros Studio Acting School in New York. There he had a teacher named Lee Strasberg, the man who ran the school and delivered some very big actors to Hollywood. Marilyn had a very close and intimate relationship with Strasberg and her husband. She always maintained this relationship, and before her death she left them notes related to her memories and hard life. Marilyn Monroe's acting talent, contrary to what many would like to prove at the time, was not only in beauty, but she had an unparalleled talent for humor. A clear example of this story is in the movie How to Marry a Millionaire, where Marilyn Monroe plays a nearsighted girl and throws a big shadow on then Hollywood star Betty Grable just by eating against the wall. Stupid blonde image, what the directors of that time wanted to leave Marilyn. Movies like Diamonds Are a Girl's Best Friend, Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, Fireball, The Story of the Mother City and were all works in which Marilyn starred, but the focus was on her beauty. Something Marilyn wanted to be free of. It was through this that he created his own studio, but Hollywood did not welcome it. Hollywood men wanted him to be the stupid blonde who plays watery roles. He wanted to climb the ladder and was proud of it, while also being a successful actor. These conflicts finally led to Marilyn's dismissal in 1962. Lois Banner, who knew Marilyn well, considered Marilyn a socialist. If Monroe was alive, she would have adopted a child and become a human rights activist, he says. Feminist movements started after the death of Marilyn Monroe. Despite this, Monroe is among the first feminists. Marilyn had complete control over her image in the media, and her fight against the patriarchal system of Hollywood was her main reason for creating an independent film company. In 1955, Marilyn Monroe starred in the film The 7-Year Itch, directed by Billy Wilder, after some time away from the cinema. Marilyn was still trying hard to get rid of the stupid blonde image, and during the same story, after the success of the movie The 7-Year Itch, her relationship with Hollywood turned dark. He turned down How to Get Famous and instead moved to New York to study under Lee Strasberg at the Actors Studio to escape the stereotypical roles he was offered forever. Some consider Marilyn the most beautiful woman of the century, but his romantic and personal life was full of problems. Cinema had made a dream image of Monroe, and this was something that hurt her a lot. Hollywood's image of Marilyn was that of a cheerful woman, but just a simple look at a small slice of her life can reveal how broken she was inside. He dreamed of art, but the capitalist system made him a brand. A money-making machine, for themselves, not for him. Something Marilyn was always trying to get rid of. Marilyn Monroe said, "I am a loser. Men expect a lot from me, because of the image that has been made of me, and I have helped in making it. I am a symbol of the only thing that men welcome." Maybe now is the right time to talk about Monroe's romantic relationships. There was always a strange paradox for Monroe in this relationship: if Marilyn loved someone, she didn't love him, and if someone loved Marilyn, Marilyn didn't love him back. Marilyn's first marriage was proposed by Grace Mackey, who was her guardian, at the age of 16 and with a football player. During the war, it was very common for young people to marry after high school. They married in 1942, and when Jim, her husband, was drafted into the army to fight, Marilyn turned to photography modeling. They divorced in 1946, and after that, Monroe became a famous photo model whose pictures appeared in all the country's magazines. Between 1949 and 1952, nude photos were taken of him. The publication of her nude photos in 1953 was very disturbing for him, because no actress had been photographed nude in Hollywood until that date. These photos were later seen in every cafe in the country. The printing of these photos and the uncertainty that Monroe had found regarding his surroundings and living conditions, the feeling of insecurity that had crept into him, prepared the preparations for his second marriage. This time with baseball legend Joe DiMaggio. Joe was a kind but violent man who considered himself the owner of Marilyn. Their life was full of tension, and the period of this marriage did not last more than 9 months. In 1955, Marilyn's third marriage took place with Arthur Miller, a prominent American playwright. Their life lasted 5 years. She had to have 3 abortions. This issue had a sad psychological effect on Marilyn, and she became addicted to the pills prescribed by the doctor. The writer Arthur Miller was also a difficult person and interfered on the set and told the director that, for example, they should change the part of the script related to Marilyn. A woman with periods of depression but with always smiling photos. Marilyn Monroe struggled with many mental problems. She suffered from bipolar disorder. Sometimes he was depressed and sometimes he was happy. He was depressed at times and manic at times, and he could carry out his work just when he was in a high state of mind or mania. In addition to these, Monroe's stuttering as a child due to mental problems caused the scenes to be repeated several times during filming. Perhaps the most controversial thing about Marilyn Monroe is her death. A case that is still not clear, in which Monroe committed suicide or was suspected. Marilyn Monroe's last prominent public appearance dates back to May 19, 1962. He was at John's birthday party. F. Kennedy appeared on stage at Madison Square Garden and sang happy birthday to the president. Marilyn Monroe died on August 4, 1962 in California. The cause of his death was sleeping drug overdose and suicide. but the claims of a conspiracy and a series of mysterious events that led to his death have always been controversial. Marilyn Monroe was buried on August 8, 1962, in one of the famous cemeteries in Los Angeles, called Westwood Cemetery. The police declared the cause of death to be high barbaric acid salt in his body. If we want to look at the life of this famous Hollywood actor, and if we want to put everything together like a puzzle, perhaps the most obvious thing is his endless efforts to make his talents visible. That Monroe's friends have said that when we lost her, she didn't even have money for her funeral, shows how far she had come from what she dreamed of and how fruitless her efforts had been. Marilyn wrote in one of her notes, "A lady actress is not a machine, but it is widely accepted that you must be a machine, a money-making machine. With all this, I wanted to be great, not a money-maker." Also, in a novel about her personal life, she mentions that an image was made of me called Marilyn Monroe that I wasn't, it was what other people wanted. Maybe these words from Marilyn Monroe are a good excuse to examine the economic and political approaches of Hollywood and all artistic societies with a large audience.